Take out September, the Eagles went 16-1. The point differential was plus 238, was sixth best in the Super Bowl era. And the turnover differential plus 29, which is the third best in the Super Bowl era. Now I know that we're literally excluding some games, but that's what Saquon said. So
no, hold on,
playing by his rules.
That's not playing by his rules.
That's what he said.
It's kind of like your Trevor Lawrence.
No, but hold on. Hold on. He said we were a top 5 team ever.
But he said.
But he didn't say if you take out September, we were a top 5 team ever.
He said we were 2-2 in September, and since then.
Yeah, but listen, I listen to more of this podcast than I would like. I don't think he was saying, if you look at every team in NFL history from October 1 on, we're one of the 5 best.
No, he called them one of the best.
One of the 5 best.
But he's making the point of they were 500 and then they went 16-1.
Yeah. Well,
pretty good.
The teams that I think most people have in the top 5 ever, or top 10, are teams that they had a run. Like he even said in his list, he said the Chiefs, pick a team. The Brady Patriots, pick a team. I could add the Bradshaw, Steel Curtain Steelers, pick one. The Niners of the 80s, Montana, pick one of those. And the Cowboys of the 90s, if you want to pick one. He mentioned the Dolphins of the 70s. They won back-to-back Super Bowls and went to 3 straight.
Yeah.
So
the one that didn't is the 85 Bears.
Right, 85 Bears.
Yeah.
And he mentioned the Ravens too in 2000. Yeah. What this Eagles team has to do to get into that conversation is do it again. Whether they win it or at least get back to the Super Bowl. That Bears team even went 14-2 the next year. It lost, in the divisional round. But I'll say this, Nick, for one-offs, I think you can put them up against the Ravens. The Ravens had that historically great defense. But Trent Dilfer was the quarterback. They didn't have this terrific offense. And then the Bears even, again, historically great defense, the awesome Walter Payton, but Jim McMahon is your quarterback.
But that Bears team, though, despite everyone says Jim McMahon was the quarterback, they scored the second most points in the NFL that year.
Right.
They were
but
a great
McMahon
offense.
is not a great quarterback. Not a great quarterback. Look, I think for one-offs, he has a point because you got what's looking like a really good quarterback right now. We got 2 really good receivers, a defense that was second in points, first in total defense, certainly an all-time performance for a season by a running back. And then, Nick, them blowing out the Chiefs, who were an all-time great team. That says a lot, too. So I think as far as one-offs, they got an argument, but I think to officially be in the top 5, they have to continue to get close or win.
Even for one-offs, they're not one of the, as far as single seasons, they're not one of the 10 best teams ever. And I think, now.
What are you going to base that on?
So I'll explain it in a second. But now, top 5 most dominant Super Bowls ever.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't that play into it?
Of course, but it's
especially against the Chiefs.
No, that's why because there have been a bunch of Super Bowls used to all be blowouts.
Right.
There have been a bunch of Super Bowls where teams won by far more than 18, and we can even say if this one they really won by 30 because that's what it was when. But we saw the Cowboys, the Niners over the Chargers. It's because who they beat that it looks better. But the 5 best teams, in my opinion, of all time, 5 best ever, and I can give you the resume. 72 Dolphins, the number 1 offense, the number 1 defense, literally went undefeated. The 78 Steelers, number 5 offense, number 1 defense, went 14-2, doubled up their opponents in the playoffs, 102-46. The 84 Niners lost 1 game, number 2 offense, number 1 defense, more than tripled up their opponents in the postseason. The 85 Bears, number 2 offense, number 1 defense, 15-1, outscored their opponents in the postseason 91-10.
That's pretty good.
And the 92 Cowboys, number 2 offense, number 5 defense, almost tripled up their opponents in the postseason, went 13-3. The Eagles, for the record, number 7 offense, number 2 defense, and almost doubled their opponents up in the postseason, 145-77, because game 1 against the Packers is a 6-point game or a 7-point game with 7 minutes left, and 6-point game. And game 2 against the Rams up on 13-yard line, down 6 with a minute left. Then they had thoroughly dominant after that. The reason I said not one of the top 10 is if we just do the last 30 years.
I was going to say, because the thing about those teams, and I'm sure you know it, they all were pre-free agency.
Correct.
So you got to stack, tons of Hall of Famers.
So, but I think in the last 30 years, and there's one team that Wilds might take issue with on this, because they didn't win the Super Bowl, so maybe Brew will. But I think in the last 30 years, the 5 best teams are, and again, this isn't 1 through 5, this is chronological order. The 98 Broncos, who tripled up their opponents in the postseason. It was their second straight Super Bowl. They went 14-2. They had the number 2 offense. The 99 Rams, who everyone thinks that they were just offense, number 1 offense. They also had the number 4 defense. They went 13-3. They outscored opponents in the regular season by 284 points, a record at the time. The undefeated Patriots, who are the greatest football team I've ever seen, they didn't win the Super Bowl, and
you
so
can't put them in though. I agree with you. They're the best looking. They're the greatest team I saw, but they didn't. They didn't close the game.
But so, and then the 16 Patriots, which I think was the best Patriot team ever that won the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs, the first year of this 3 straight Super Bowl run.
Okay, this is hilarious. It's just. It's so funny to put the Chiefs in there and not have the Eagles when the Eagles dominated in a way that we have never seen. They hung, because he was like talking about, oh, and so had a record, and it was a record at the time. The Eagles set the record for the most points scored ever in playoff history. They have the record for the most points scored in any conference championship game. They hung 95 points in the in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, and they absolutely annihilated the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that throughout this entire season that Nick Wright just kept praising, that this is the greatest team we have ever seen, and that this is the greatest franchise we have ever seen. And I made whole separate videos because he kept saying this team hasn't lost since Christmas of last year, and their playoff record, and he was going through their playoff record and their total wins and their regular season streak and all of that, and kept saying it's the greatest streak ever, and he kept going and going. And I had a whole separate video breaking down of like, well, let's actually look at these rankings and all this. And Chiefs fans hated me and they were yelling at me, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm just going based off of like the actual historical context. Like, I'm not cooking the books here. Like, it's literally just what it is. And so Nick is going through all of that, saying how unbelievably amazing and how unstoppable this team, and how it's a disgrace, and how dare you even remotely doubt the Kansas City Chiefs, and that the 3-peat is just all but guaranteed. And then you run into the absolute freight train, the absolute dominant performance, the most embarrassing performance that Patrick Mahomes has ever had in his life, more so than against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you have the audacity, after they just came off of hanging 55 points against the Washington Commanders, and they quite frankly could have hung another 55 points against the Chiefs if they wanted to, and you have the audacity to say that they're not a top team, that they are not one of the top 5 best teams over the last 30 years. That's insane. And then even having Brew be like, whoa, we think Jalen Hurts is a pretty good quarterback. And like, he had one of the best years, Saquon Barkley. Like, what are we talking about? He had single-handedly the best season, start to finish, including playoffs, in NFL history, is what Saquon Barkley did. And we know it's actually even less because he didn't play the final game of the season. We know that, okay? And then the one loss against the Washington Commanders, Jalen Hurts got injured. Jalen Hurts got knocked out of that game. We're just going to pretend like that's nothing. Really? And we're like, well, it was a close game between the Packers, and so what are you going to do about that? The score was 27-20 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the 2022 team that he says is one of the best teams. The score was 23-20 against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Super Bowl champion, when they won, the score was 38-35. The Eagles scored the most points ever in a Super Bowl loss. The defense was ranked 16th. And Nick was like, wow, the defense was only ranked 1st or 2nd, and the offense was only 7th, or, well, and it's like, okay, so then what are we doing here? Like this is what the Chiefs are. So why is this team considered to be one of the best teams in the history of the universe over the last 30 years? But then the Eagles, who were more dominant in the playoffs, who practically hung more points in just 2 games than the Chiefs did in their entire run. Like how? They had a better defense. Their offense was comparable. Like I don't understand. I really don't. They had record-breaking season from Saquon Barkley, a dominant O-line, a dominant defense. Jalen Hurts set the record for most rushing yards in Super Bowl history, breaking his own record that he did against this 2022 Chiefs team. Like, I don't even understand. He set the record for the highest EPA in Super Bowl history. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And he did it against the team that Nick Wright himself kept saying, this is the greatest team ever. He kept saying that. He literally kept saying that. That was his words, not mine. Not mine. In fact, you have a better argument for calling me out and saying, well, you didn't think the Chiefs were that amazing, so why is them beating them that amazing then? And that would actually be the best point to counter at me. You could use Jedi mind tricks right there and say, well, wait a second. You were all season saying that the Chiefs aren't as great and dominant and that they're not that as special as people are making them out to be. So why would the Eagles beating them be? And it's like, yeah, that's actually a total fair point, which is why I feel like I already gave the rest of the argument of saying, well, they had the record-breaking playoffs, Saquon Barkley, record-breaking, Jalen Hurts, record-breaking, absolute dominant wins, 55, 40 points, 95, et cetera, et cetera. So like I laid that argument out. And now it's like, well, if we're going to go by what Nick Wright's opinion is, it's like, well, you said that this team was absolutely unbelievably amazing. And the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely embarrassed and dominated them in ways that the Baltimore Ravens didn't do, the Buffalo Bills didn't do, the Cincinnati Bengals didn't do, the Commanders didn't do, the Rams didn't do, no other team's done. No other team has ever beaten the Chiefs in a way that the Philadelphia Eagles did. Not even Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it just doesn't make sense. It really fundamentally does not make any sense. This is really funny because we can see the Kansas City Chiefs 29.2 points, 21.7 for defense. So they averaged 29.2 points per game in 2022. They averaged 21.7, giving up a game. The Philadelphia Eagles in 2024, 17.8 points. 17.8 points per game. Chiefs 21.7. The offense 27.2. The Chiefs 29.2. So more of a toss-up between their offense than certainly the defense in terms of differences. Not to mention the Eagles could have scored more, but again, you have moments where like Jalen Hurts got knocked out of a game and then missed games. So it's less like, so we know that this isn't even a true representation of the points per game. And you know what's hilarious? You really want to know what's really funny? Because Nick put out the Patriots and said that, the Patriots, even though they lost, he still sees them as a top team and one of the best teams ever. You want to know what's really funny? This right now is 2024. PFF's rankings, including the playoffs, regular season and playoffs. The Philadelphia Eagles, 94.3 is their overall rating. Okay? Their overall rating, 94.3. Let's compare that to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. Uh-oh. The Philadelphia Eagles in 2022 was still better than this team. Not to mention the team in 2024 was better. So in 2022 and 2024, the Philadelphia Eagles were both better than Nick Wright's all-time special team. Do you understand? Do you understand that? So you can make the argument that in 2022, that the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they lost the Super Bowl, was actually better. And you can't say, well, they didn't win the Super Bowl because Nick Wright himself literally has the New England Patriots there. Then you can say, well, that team was undefeated. That's fair. I get it, but doesn't matter. So it's just it's comical at this point. I mean, it really, really is. Yeah. The Eagles in 2022 scored more points and gave up less. 581 points. The Chiefs, I guess by 3. Okay, 581 to 584, 396 to 444. Ah, man, that is hilarious, honestly. It really, really is. The Eagles scored 608 points. And they allowed 380 in 2024. 608. I'm doing this in real time right now. 608 to 380. And in 2022, the Chiefs only had 584, and they allowed 444. So if you want to use these stats, which Nick was kind of railing off, that's hilarious. That really is. It is funny how when it works out like that. I'm glad I did this in real time. Oh man. So then what are we going off of? Patrick Mahomes. Like, I don't get it, because in that Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes didn't do this. They averaged 36.25 points per game while holding opponents to 18.7. Effectively 15.25 as the Chiefs were down 40-6 until the Eagles pulled their starters. Had 6 sacks in the Super Bowl, 1 short of the Super Bowl record while not blitzing once. Also averaged 204 rushing yards per game. And let's not forget that they averaged 3 or 4 turnovers a game in the playoffs. Like, every single game had at least 3 turnovers, which is just it's just outrageous. I mean, that's just absolutely insanity. Again, they averaged 36.25 points per game, and we'll even just use the regular bottom line number of 18.7, not even counting the starters thing. And then again, when you look at what the Chiefs did, they only scored 27, 23, and then they scored 38. Hooray. They gave up 20. They gave up 20. They gave up 35. Don't playoffs weigh a little bit more? I think so. And we're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars? Really? That's such a great team? Okay. Sure. Did Patrick Mahomes do this in his Super Bowl in 2022? Did he throw for 200-plus yards, rush for at least 70-plus yards, throw multiple touchdown passes, rush for a touchdown, complete 75% of his 75% of his passes, average 10-plus yards per pass attempt, and win the game? Patrick Mahomes never did that because no other quarterback in the history of the NFL has ever done that except for Jalen Hurts. And he literally did that in the Super Bowl against the number 1 defense in the NFL that he could face, because the Eagles actually had the number 1 defense in the NFL. It's all the more remarkable what he was then able to do, and the Philadelphia Eagles as a whole. This is 2024. This is now just the defensive rankings. Look at this gap. The Philadelphia Eagles defense was rated 91.2. No other team was even ranked in the 80s. The highest was the Kansas City Chiefs, who got to 79.4. I mean, do you understand that? That's how dominant this Philadelphia Eagles team really, truly was. The Philadelphia Eagles defense in 22 was still ranked higher than the Kansas City Chiefs that Super Bowl year in 79.3. So it's just hilarious by whatever metric you want to use. And Patrick Mahomes can't be the metric, because Patrick Mahomes literally threw for 182 yards and had 6.7 yards per attempt. in a game where Jalen Hurts played better, where he threw for 304 yards, 8 yards per attempt, and had to be the leading rusher, 70 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns and 2-point conversions. And no, they weren't all tush pushes. I mean, these numbers don't lie. We already know Patrick Mahomes has been outdueled by Jalen Hurts, and these are cooked. We got to remove a couple of those touchdowns from him and a bunch of those passing yards. Like, we know that. He did it against the backups. Jalen Hurts had to do it up against the starters. More passing yards, more rushing yards, more total touchdowns, less turnovers. In the 22 Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts had a 92.2 ranking. Patrick Mahomes, 89.5. Passing even, Jalen Hurts, you know that quarterback who doesn't know how to pass? Passed better with the 92.9, better than Patrick Mahomes. This is just the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had 5 big-time throws. 5 big-time throws. Patrick Mahomes, 1. I don't know what to tell you. His receivers had 0 drops. Jalen Hurts actually had a receiver who dropped. But the pressure, the O-line. What about the O-line? Jalen Hurts was pressured 12 times. Patrick Mahomes, 11. Which is also interesting because then it also burns Brew's argument of like, well, the Eagles have to do it again. Well, they did it in 22 and 24. Like, what are we saying here? Like, seriously. The Eagles have already built a dominant team and a dominant Super Bowl team in 2 different Super Bowls. So I don't know. I don't even know what that means. That and I knew this. I made videos before saying this. That unless the Eagles do it again, people are going to be like, well, see, it was just a blah, 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 blah. It's like, what else do you want this team to do? I mean, it's just crazy. It really is. It really fundamentally makes no sense no matter how you slice it, especially because we're talking about individual years now. We're talking about specific years. So whatever Patrick Mahomes did in 2018 and 2019, and he's led the Chiefs to 19 AFC championship games, none of that matters. We're talking about a specific year here. So it doesn't matter what Patrick Mahomes did in any other years past. We're talking specifically comparing 2022 and comparing it to even the Philadelphia Eagles in 22 or the Philadelphia Eagles of 2024. And no matter how you slice it, quite frankly, both teams were better than the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs. I don't care about the 98 Broncos, 99 Rams, the Patriots, the Patriots. Like, none of that matters at this point. It really doesn't. Because the Chiefs shouldn't be there. That's why. I mean, like, this is just comically, hilariously absurd. I mean, it really is. It oh boy. That's so funny. That really is. And it's funny when you come up like, well, you know, the Packers, it was a 6-point game or whatever the heck it was. And you know, and the Rams were on the 13-yard line. And then and it's like, dude, what? It was a 1-score game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, huh? And the Bengals, was that the year when there was like that really bad penalty on like a late hit when I think it was when Patrick Mahomes was clearly out of bounds? And what about, you know, it was literally a 3-point game in the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles? Like what? Like what? Bailed out by a flag. Whether you want to say that was a penalty or not, even if it was a penalty, it was a still bailout because that pass wasn't going to be completed by any measurable way. So they would have had to have kicked a field goal, not run the clock out, and then it still would have been a 3-point game with Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles with the ball. So again, if we want to like use the logic that you were using to downplay the Philadelphia Eagles, then you have to use the exact same logic. And if you don't want to use, and again, since it's a specific team, we're not using history as a reference point, well, then you have to talk about Jalen Hurts' amazing year in 22 and historical record-breaking performances in 2024, specifically in the Super Bowl. Oh, man. This was the gift. Happy Memorial Day to me. I was not expecting this one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just don't even know, man. And it's so funny because I'm watching this clip live. Like I didn't know that this clip was coming. And I knew that I was, we were going to get something like this. I just knew it, obviously. And I knew there was no way that Nick was going to say, oh, yeah, this was, the Eagles are one of the best teams. We knew that. And then he kind of did throw me for a surprise when he didn't say the Kansas City Chiefs for the best team, I guess, of all time or whatever. But then he just said, oh, let's just look at it over the last 30 years. Because at first he kind of impressed me. But then I knew, okay, as soon as I realized that he was going to say the last 30 years, I knew it was going to have to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I knew it. And then here we are. And you know what's really hilarious? If the Kansas City Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl, he, without a shadow of a doubt, would have put them up there twice as well. And he would be talking about the streak, the playoff streak, the regular season streak, etc., the three-peat, all of that. And then the Eagles team beat that very team. They stopped that from happening in record-breaking, dominant fashion. Pretty hilarious. It's like I want to just continue to marinate in this because it's so fundamentally wrong, and there's not even like a narrative argument, which ends up just being opinion based, of course. But there's not even a statistical argument. Like, that's the beauty of it. That's actually the beauty of it, because I know Nick is so stat driven, and you have the Philadelphia Eagles who won in such a statistical dominant fashion, both just the regular old statistics, points allowed, points scored, how many points did you score in this specific game, and what is its historical context to the other times this game has existed, and as well as like the PFF more advanced analytics, the grades. Like, it's just too perfect. It really is, not to mention, of course, the narrative as well. This segment was so good. I wish I could do it again. I wish a part of me just like, dude, you should just delete this video and just do it again. Because I mean, like, this is, oh man, this is a long video. I hope you guys watch the whole thing. I hope you guys give it thumbs up. This is one of those videos that I just wish, I just want everyone to watch. Not even from a selfish standpoint, honestly. Not even from a selfish standpoint. Nothing to do with that. Obviously, I want the views. Obviously, I want the subscribers and the thumbs up and the comments and all of that. But this is one of those videos where it's just like, I just want to give it to the people. I was like, please, I need you guys to all just watch this, please. So just watch it, I beg you, because this is one of those takes, one of those videos that I hope I could remember in the future when it's like November 2027, and I could be like, wait a second, don't you remember 2 years ago you said that? Because it's just like, oh god, so ridiculous. I got to do this one more time. I've been doing this in a couple other videos, but I got to do it one more time. Honestly, my hands are tied. This is the Super Bowl song that I created. As soon as the Philadelphia Eagles won, I stayed up real late. I didn't even sleep that night. And this is the song. So enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. Philly, stand up. They said we couldn't do it. Nah, they doubted us all year. But we here now. Champs again. Super Bowl locked. Hey, yo, hit that beat. No one likes us. We don't care. Bleed green. We everywhere. Doubted us. Don't you dare. Stop the Chiefs, and the streak ain't nothing fair. No one likes us, we don't care. Andy and Mahomes looking scared. Sacrifice goats, no time to spare. No one likes us, we don't care. Started from the mud, now we flying like Hurts. Said Jalen wasn't clutch, now they crying it hurts. Talked down on the team, said the coaches were weak. Now we hoisting that Lombardi while they watching in defeat. Patrick Mahomes, nah, he never broke through. Met him at the line, Philly D said, who? All year long, they said we was frauds. Now the trophy in the air while they praying to the gods. Nick Sirianni got the playbook savage. Fans you dialing up pressure, leave Mahomes in damage. AJ and Devontae breaking ankles in the flats, while our secondary feast snatching picks like snacks. No one likes us, we don't care. Bleed green, we everywhere. Doubted us, don't you dare. Stop the Chiefs, and the streak ain't nothing fair. No one likes us, we don't care. Andy and Mahomes looking scared. Sacrifice goats, no time to spare. No one likes us, we don't care. Kansas City came in thinking they were sweet. Mahomes in the pocket, but we brought the heat. Three-peat dreams, now we snatched that crown. Travis Kelce in the dirt while we run this town. Talk about doubters, nah, we don't listen. Kahupa holding strong, never breaking his position. Barkley in the backfield, swift like a ghost. We roast competition while we sacrifice goats. Lane Johnson on the line, that's a wall, no cracks. Every yard we take, there ain't no turning back. Grease them poles, Broad Street go wild. Whole city lit, got that Philly style. Who's doubting now? I yell to the sky. Hurts took the hits, now the MVP ready to fly. Philly to the death, yeah, that's our creed. We grind, we bleed, and we all succeed. No one likes us, we don't care. Bleed green, we everywhere. Doubted us, don't you dare. Stop the Chiefs, and the streak ain't nothing fair. No one likes us, we don't care. Andy and Mahomes looking scared. Sacrifice goats, no time to spare. No one likes us, we don't care. Philly on top, put respect on the name. Climb through the hate, now we own the game. You doubted us once, you won't do it again. Super Bowl champs, now let that reign begin. No one likes us, we don't care. We don't care.